Unbroken Covenant Church. Welcome you to Bread for Life with Pastor Tommy Pope Sr. This program has been made possible by the faithful supporters of the Unbroken Covenant Church mission.
Pastor Tommy's vision for the live stream church. We see the church at Unbroken Covenant live stream as a dynamic, spirit-filled, multicultural, multi-generational church, numbering in the thousands of people from all walks of life, all around the world, taking the good news of Jesus Christ outside the four walls of the local church.
Today on Bread for Life with Pastor Tommy Pope Sr. For an enlightening Bible study on Matthew 25:31-41. We'll delve into the powerful parable of the sheep and the goats. Discover the profound message of compassion, service, and eternal consequences conveyed by Jesus in this passage. Pastor Tommy will guide us in exploring how we can live out our faith through acts of kindness and love, and what it truly means to care for the least of these. How believers are called to use their resources and talents to help others. This study promises to deepen your understanding of Christian service and its significance in our lives today. Don't miss this opportunity to grow spiritually and live out your faith in practical ways. All are welcome, and no prior knowledge is required. Here's Pastor Tommy with today's teaching. He titles it, Compassion in Action.
Hello, I'd like to welcome you to Bread for Life. I'm Tommy Pope Sr. I am the senior pastor here at Unbroken Covenant Church. And our objective here is Matthew chapter 22, verse 37. We are to love the Lord our God with all of our heart, all of our soul, and all of our mind. And we are to love you and others all around the world. And we are called to make disciples. I want to thank you for joining us tonight. We're going to have a great time, what I call a deep dive into the Bible tonight. We're going to be on a great subject tonight. But first, I would like to ask you one thing. Do you love the Lord thou God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, and with all of your mind? I want to ask you that tonight because that is important there. You know, Jesus said in Matthew 22 that was the first and foremost greatest of all the commandments. See, is to love. If you go to Exodus chapter 20 in the 10th commandment, you'll find out, when you go to Exodus, you'll find out that love is about the first four or first five is dealing with love. Because if your love is not where it need to be with Almighty God, if your love is not there, then you know what? The love for the less fortunate, the love for your neighbor, the love for yourself will not be there. You know, I see people, you know, all the time. I'm surrounded by people, and plus I teach so many people, and I hear overall that the less fortunate should work like we did. That's what I hear a lot of people saying, that they should have worked like I did. I had to work. And sometimes you'll hear when somebody maybe walk up to you and maybe smelling like alcohol, or maybe hadn't bathed in a few days, and he asks you for some food or some money. And we say, well, I ain't giving him nothing because I'm not going to be a victim of him going out and using that money to do something wrong, like maybe buying drugs or alcohol or whatever. But I'm here tonight to tell you that type of attitude do not love the Lord thou God with all of his heart. See, that type of attitude is not the attitude that we should have when we say we are followers of Jesus. Now, the reason I said that is because Jesus himself, see, he suffered for you and I today, for us to have the right to eternal life, for us to have the right to live in the kingdom one day. He suffered for that, knowing that everyone was not going to accept him, but he done it for those also. So I said that to say this, that if he could love them enough to die for them, knowing that they was going to reject him, now how can we use an excuse? And that's all it is. It's an excuse to look at the less fortunate. It's an excuse to say they need to get a job. It's an excuse to look at the drug addict and say they need to get off of drugs. It's an excuse to look at the alcoholic and say you can do better. Because if you love the Lord thou God with all your heart, if you love him with all your soul, if you love him with all your mind, you're going to have a mind of Christ. You're going to have, number one, compassion. And tonight we're going to be looking at something we call compassion in action. See, because just like James said in the book of James, James said, faith without works is dead. Compassion without action is dead also. Going to church and calling ourselves a Christian is not going to get us to the kingdom. In order to get to the kingdom, we're going to have to love the Lord our God. And I know someone is saying right now that you love God, but you are one of them that's condemning the less fortunate. You are one of them talking about how much better they need to get. A lot of us is some of the ones that's talking about they need to get their life together. Well, I'm here today and I'm going to show you in tonight's teaching that that's not politically correct. That's not the spirit. That's not the attitude that we should have being a follower of Jesus. Because guess what? No matter how low you were, no matter how low you are right now, he loved you. And guess what? Not only did he love you, he died for you. So you know what he done? He put love in action. Just like we said, we need to have compassion in action. Because you know what he could have said? He could have said, well, you know what? Most of the church, they're not going to receive me. They didn't in his day. See, I like to divide it. Just like tonight teaching, we're going to be talking about the judgment between the sheep and the goat. See, I like to separate it too. I like to separate it from the sheep and the goats. That's why I said in the church. See, because we have been taught for so many years that we looking at the lost out there like they going to hell. See, we've been taught that. It's been taught from generation to generation and generation. It's been taught that. Tonight we're going to show you something that when we talk about the lost going to hell, we're going to show you something what hell was made for. Who hell was created for. See, we serve a God that created you in his image. We serve a God that created you in his likeness. We serve a God that love you unconditional because of that reason right there. And we're going to see in tonight's study, we're going to see what do Jesus think about the less fortunate. See, we need this. We're going to see what Jesus have to say about the less fortunate, about the hungry, about the naked, about the sick, about the ones in prison. We're going to see what he said tonight in Matthew chapter 25, and we're going to be looking at around verse 31 through 41. And we're going to get an insight on, on what Jesus says about it, because overall, we have our good jobs and we spending our money on ourselves. And you know, Paul told Timothy in 2 Timothy that in the last days, they're going to be lovers of themselves. What we mean by lovers of themselves is not men going with men and women going with women. That ain't what he was talking about in that context. Lovers of themselves mean we're going to be prideful. We're going to be greedy over money. It's going to be all about me. See, that's what Paul was telling Timothy, that they're going to be lovers of themselves. They're going to be putting self first. Well, now, what we just read, Matthew 22 said to love the Lord thy God first, the first and foremost greatest of the commandments. But see, we got such a great job today. We making so much money today. And you know what? We'll give some to the church, but then that person out there begging, that person out there hungry, we talking about them. We say, well, you know what? They ought to get a job. Well, let me tell you what, your responsibility, you are the church, and the church folk to help the less fortunate. Now, I'm not saying you don't supposed to give to the church. You can give to the church, but don't give all that you can't give to the less fortunate. Because you're going to find out today, in today's teaching, how the less fortunate, you're going to find out who the less fortunate really are. They're not who you think they are. Or we look at them as just some old drug addicts. We look at them as just some old dope heads or some alcoholics. Or we look at them like they some kind of homosexuals or some kind of predator. We look at them like that. But tonight, you're going to find out just exactly who you're dealing with. And you're going to find out if you ain't got a heart for the less fortunate, if you can't help the people that's in need. Oh yeah, I know what we're saying. Oh yeah, they ought to do better. I had a choice. They got a choice. And I chose to do better. They ought to do better. I know that's how we're thinking, but guess what though? That's not love for God. See, Jesus loved the Father. You heard him. You seen him. You heard everything. You heard every prayer he prayed. He loved the Father. In the garden, he said, let this cup pass. But guess what he done though? He said, not my will, Lord, but let your will be done. See, that's where we falling short today. We doing our will. They ought to get a job. They ought to work like I did. They ought to get off of that dope. We hear all excuses. You know, when I think about that, or when I look at that, when I see them, the first thing come to my mind is I start asking God, I start thanking God for his blessings on my life. When I see that, I start letting Almighty God know how grateful I really am. Because you know what? I'm not above, I could have been in that situation. Matter of fact, at one time in my life, I was in that situation. I done drugs. Now, I ain't never begged. I've always done good in life, but I done drugs at one time in my life. Now, I could have been that one that drugs just took me out and I didn't have nothing, didn't have nowhere to stay. I could have been. That's why today I don't look at them and judge them. I help them. And guess what? I always thank God for the blessings that he have on my life. I always thank him because you know what? I tell the people in the church, I tell people, you know what? It could have been me. It could have been you. Don't never look at somebody and think that it couldn't have been you, because it could be. And guess what? It's not too late now. Something could happen to you that you could need a bad surgery and you be in so much pain and you need pain medication. The next thing you know, you might be a full-blown pill popper. See? So don't never look at someone less fortunate than you and down him, because you know what? It don't take but a flick of the finger to be in that situation. So tonight we're going to look at some compassion in action. Tonight we're going to look at some compassion in action tonight. We're going to get some clarity in this less fortunate and how we should handle the less fortunate. I'm going to do a little introduction over our teaching tonight before we get started. And our teaching, like I said, is in Matthew 25 tonight, and we're going to be looking at verses 31 through 41. Jesus tells a parable about the final judgment. In this story, Jesus describes how he will separate people into two groups. The sheep on one side and the goats on the other, based on how they treated others. I want you to really think about this tonight. See, he's going to separate the sheep from the goats, all based on how they treat others. We know some others is in pretty bad shape, but we still going to be separated into two groups, and it's going to be on how we treated others. The sheep are those who helped others in need. See, they didn't look at, well, they own dope, and I ain't going to support their dope habit. They need to get a job. I'm not going to enable them. See, we come up with a whole lot of excuses. While the goats are those who did not help the less fortunate, that made good money and spent their money on themselves and on all material stuff that they wanted. You know, last week we done where is your treasure? You know, storing up for yourself treasures on earth where moth and rust does corrupt and where thieves break in and steal. See. So where are you storing up your treasures? Well, let me tell you before we go any further. If you storing up your treasures in the less fortunate, you storing up your treasures in the kingdom of heaven, where moth or the rust cannot break in, thieves can't break in and steal. Jesus said that when we help others, we are really helping him. Hold on right there. Wait a minute, preacher. What you mean when I help others or don't help others, I'm not helping God. I love God with all my heart, with all my soul, and with all my mind. So what you talking about when I don't help the less fortunate, the dope addict, the alcoholic, or whatever, what you mean that I'm not helping you? He said that when you feed the hungry, give water to the thirsty, welcome strangers, clothe the naked, care for the sick, and visit those in prison, we are doing it for him. That's hard to understand right there. That's hard to understand. I deal with people all the time, and I hear what people have to say. In the church, they have told me, Pastor, you can't help everybody. That's what they have told me. You can't save everybody. That's what they have told me. That's what they have said to me. But I have always said back to them that I can't save anyone. But I can be the vessel that Almighty God uses, is all I can be. See, so I'm not coming up with those excuses. This parable teaches us that we should be kind and compassionate to others, especially those who are in need. Now you're going to find out too that it's more to it than just that. It reminds us that we should treat others as we would like to be treated ourselves. You know, you have heard, do unto others as they would do unto you. We should be generous with our time and our resources and help those who are less fortunate than we are. We come now to the final section of Christ's Olivet Discourse. The disciples have asked some questions about the end of the age. Jesus answered in Matthew 24, verse 25. The last section is the judgment on the sheep and goats. The sermon concludes with 4 parables, which Christ has arranged in units of 2 each. The first 2 parables are a pair of parables, and the second 2 parables are also a pair. The first parable of each pair refers to those believers who live during this age, the age of the church. The second parable of each pair refers to those who live during the tribulation period. We are looking at the final parable of the 4. All of Christ's teaching in these 2 chapters, this parable is the easiest to understand because Christ is very clear on when these events will take place, who exactly this judgment is upon, and what exactly happened at this judgment. We're going to be looking at Matthew 25, verse 41. And I'll read it. When the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory. And before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a sheep divideth his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on his left. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, Come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundations of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me meat. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came unto me. Then shall the righteous answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee and hungered, and fed thee, or thirsty and gave thee drink? When saw we thee a stranger and took thee in, or naked and clothed thee? Or when saw we thee sick or in prison and came unto thee? And the king shall answer and say unto them, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as you have done it unto one of the least of these, my brethren, you have done it unto me. Verse 41. Then shall he say also unto them on his left hand, Depart from me, you cursed, into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. And his angels. We looked at this and said, what can we title this? How and where would we be able to get a title from? And we come up with something this morning in my study, just me and God. It hit me like a ton of bricks. We title it Compassion in Action. Like we said a while ago, James said, show me your faith by your works. He said, faith without works is dead. So compassion without action is dead. Compassion in action. The timing of the judgment is found in Matthew 25 and 31. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the holy angels with him, then he will sit on the throne of his glory. Then will this judgment take place. When? When will it take place? It will take place when the Son of Man comes in his glory. The only event in the future that this can possibly refer to is when Christ returned from heaven to earth and set up his throne in Jerusalem. This cannot refer to him being seated at the right hand of God in heaven. It refers to the time after 7-year tribulation, right before the 1,000-year millennium, when Christ will come from heaven with his angels and set up his throne on earth to rule for 1,000 years. And when he comes, one of the first things Christ will do is judge all people alive at that time. This is what first part of Matthew 25:32 reveals. Now, the nations, found in 25 verse 32a. All the nations will be gathered before him. All the nations. Wait a minute. What are we talking about here? All the people will be gathered before him. Though billions of people will die during the tribulation period, not all of humanity will be wiped out. There will be those who survive the tribulation period, both saved and unsaved. All survivors will be gathered together to stand before Christ. Christ wants to set up a perfect kingdom. And to do this, he must first separate his loyal subjects. Those who would not be loyal to him, he wants to begin his reign with only those who will serve him. And so he began his judgment by separating first the sheep from the goats. And before we go any further, I want you to know that we have been false taught so many years about how the lost is going to go to hell. I have heard that. People in the church, we look out at the world, the people that don't go to church, and we judge them by saying just because they're not a part of a denomination, we say that they're going to hell. Well, Luke, the great physician, in Luke 19:10, he said that the Son of Man came to seek and save that which was lost.
You're invited to join us tomorrow morning for the second part of Compassion in Action.
I will look forward to seeing each and every one of you in the morning on Saturday morning. Okay? Good night. We'll see you in the morning. Shalom.
Thank you for watching Bread for Life with Pastor Tommy Pope Sr. I'm Rosie. On behalf of Pastor Tommy and the live stream family, I would like to encourage you to share your favorite teachings with family, friends, co-workers, and people you meet. If Tommy's teaching benefits you and your family, please consider making a monthly donation of any size that's comfortable for you. If you are in the United States, call 800-717-9569 extension 801. 800-717-9569 extension 801, or our website at www.unbrokencovenant.org/give today. And we will send you a copy of Pastor Tommy's most recent CD series, Living a Blessed Life, Part 1, Instructions from the Coach. His teaching will help you grow closer in your walk with Jesus, and help you gain knowledge and insight into the will and purposes of God. And a pleasing walk. Spiritual power for steadfastness and patience. And a thankful heart. We look forward to seeing you on the next Bread for Life. God bless, and have a great day.